Hello and welcome to the second edition of webinar series organized by Isb&M Kolkata. We believe at looking at opportunities ahead in the new normal. I would like to thank all of you who had made our first webinar a big success, and we promise to keep that ahead in our series. By now, we know that for some states, the lockdown is going to be over. And even if it extends for other states, there will be more and more relaxations, which means that we have to adapt to the new normal in order to evolve and succeed. Keeping that in mind, today's webinar is titled No Risk for No Risk. As the old saying goes, the biggest risk is not taking a risk, which means that to go ahead, we have to know risk really well in order to minimize or manage it, if not a no-risk situation. We have with us in our panel, Mr. Diptendu Dash, a seasoned professional with over 2 decades of experience in leadership roles, both in consumer durable sector as well as the BFSI sector. He is now an entrepreneur for the last 3 years, working especially in the field of learning and development with national and international exposure. Thank you very much, Mr. Das, for being with us. We also have in the panel Dr. Rajib Bhattacharya, an esteemed faculty with Isb&M Kolkata. He's also a researcher in financial analytics. And last but definitely not the least, we have with us Professor Brita Singh, faculty of Isb&M Kolkata, who is an expert in communication training and has been grooming new managers for over a decade now. We will be talking about the banking, financial services, and insurance sector today. As we know, the BFSI sector is the backbone of any economy. In fact, in India, it contributes to over 7% of the national GDP. And it was in fact poised to become the 5th largest in the world. This pandemic situation is probably an acid test for the BFSI sector. The banking industry has a long history in India. In fact, the first bank was the Bank of Hindustan, founded in 1770. And the oldest bank in existence in India is the State Bank of India. With that modest beginning, we now have 27 public sector banks, 21 private sector banks, 49 foreign banks, and over 1,500 urban cooperative banks, in addition to over 10,000 NBFCs. With that huge possibility in that sector, right now in this asset test, my first question to our esteemed panelists, Mr. Diptendu Das, is what do you think are the immediate challenges regarding income and savings of individuals in the Indian scenario?
Okay, Avirupa, thank you very much for inviting me into this webinar. Would be very happy in sharing my thoughts. Wonderful question that you have put up. What is about income and savings as far as our country is concerned or people are concerned? Now, before I even get into an answering this particular question, I think one of the very important factor or one of the very important part which needs to be answered is what is the savings and what is where does it comes from? Now, initially, if you go back a little, you will find, let's say you go back around 30 years, 40 years back, people used to, how they used to, manage their family budget is that whatever they used to earn, which is their income, thereafter, they will spend out of it, which was considerable amount, around almost like, 80-85% of that money they used to spend. And then whatever was left out of it, that used to go into the savings part. But over a period of time, if you see that how the mentality of people have changed, So the equation was very simple. It was income minus saving, income minus expenses is equal to savings. So that people used to follow many of even today, looking at the kind of income that common people generate, they still follow the same. But however, over a period of time, we have seen as the dynamics of our demography has grown, it has changed over a period of time. We have seen that they have reversed this definition, and now it is income minus savings. Then they are saying that whatever is left out, we will spend. So we'll try to budget our household, everything, all the expenses after we do a certain amount of savings, because over a period of time, we have seen is that the cost of education has gone up. The cost of higher educations have also gone up. Equally, the cost of marriage has also gone up. So people can have started having a tendency that we should save first, and then we should go ahead. So the equation now stands. Equation over a period of time changed into as income minus savings is equal to expenses. So that this is one change which has taken place in our country. And over a period of time, if you see, that's how the saving instruments, as you had introduced as insurance products, or any other kind of debt products, they have gone ahead in the race, and that's how the BFSI sector has been moving ahead. But I think over a period, so from nowhere, we the current generation is now following something. Now they are financially dependent on the savings that they are making for their future use. So that's how the income and savings are moving forward as far as our country goes ahead.
Very interesting point that you've just raised here. The first the mindset was income minus expenditure is equal to saving. From there, it has become income minus saving is equal to expenditure. So people are
That's
consuming basis on their saving. Where here, I would like to ask a very important question, which is the shift in the mindset from saving. If this saving has constituted a big part of financial planning, then this saving must constitute what we call investment. So these two terms, savings and investment, how are they related, or are they different? If different, how different are they?
I think it's an awesome question that you have just asked. 95% of the people, when we talk about, they use this word savings and investment interchangeably, right? And they say savings account. They say, why don't you do an investment? And then they talk about the savings product. Now, primarily, I think one of the most important thing is to understand what is the difference between savings and investment. Why a bank account is called as a savings account, and why is it not called as an investment account, right? So even today, when we go to open a bank, they will call it as a savings account. They do not call it as an investment account. So why these two terminology? We need to understand the basic difference. Now, savings, how do we define savings, right? Savings is what? Savings is surplus. Savings is what? Accumulation, systematic accumulation of funds for a future use. That future use could be a marriage, could be education, could be my retirement, could be anything, right? So essentially, which this definition says that I do not have excess money, and whatever I am earning, I'm trying to save a little bit in a systematic manner. Now, that systematic doesn't mean that it has to be, a monthly or a yearly or whatever it is. Point is that I will have to save it for a future use. So that's what savings definition is all about. Now, the moment we look at investment, right? Investment is also systematic accumulation of funds, but this is surplus funds. So systematic accumulation of surplus fund for a future, for a growth. So essentially, this means what? I have money, and I want to grow this money from a now that growth definition of growth can be different for different people, but essentially when we say growth, which means I want to have a little more than what the savings would give me, and savings interest on the savings would give me, right? I would also like to beat the inflation. Currently, if you look at our country's inflation, we are running at almost like, on an average, if you pick up last 60 years of inflation, you will see that on an average, it's around, it hovers around 9 to 10%. If I take an average for the last 60, 70 years, which I think is a considerable, considerable amount of time period that we have taken. So if it's 10%, 9 to 10% of inflation on an average that we are facing, then investment should, for them, the definition of investment is that we should be able to beat the inflation, should be higher than this. So that's essentially a very, very basic difference between what is savings and what is investment. The mindset is also different. If you look at savings oriented people have got a different kind of mindset, which means they would like to accumulate slowly. They would like, they are essentially job oriented kind of mindset. Essentially you will find they have limited resource, and within that limited resource they will, children's education is the primary function out of it. Then they go say, then they will plan marriage out of it. So savings is something like this which flows in a very systematic manner. However, when you look at investment, which means people who have money, if you look at our country's demographics, you will find 20% of the people would be in that bracket, who have got that excess money, be they are professionals, be their business people, small business, big business. So they are essentially 20% of people whom otherwise we would call as an HNI, high net worth individual for our country. So they would look at something more than, they can beat the inflation more than what they can get by keeping this money in the bank or in any other fixed instrument, and can they, which can generate a little bit higher return than what they are expecting. So that's what they look at from savings and investment perspective.
I think from a risk perspective also, people who are more inclined to take risk or calculated risk are more inclined to invest rather than save. Would you agree?
I think a very valid point you had pointed out. So when we go to bank and the bank or the the bank employee says open a savings account, none of us ever go ahead and asks that what is the interest rate I'm going to get if we keep our money over here. Nobody, I haven't come across people asking that question. But the moment you talk about investment oriented product, when we talk about equity market, when we talk about real estate market, when we talk about gold market, when we talk about commodity market, any kind of market where there is an they will use the word investment, up comes the answer is that what is the return. So obviously, the risk factor is in a question mark when we talk about investment, and it is not there as people do not ask, or they are not that risk oriented kind of people if they are if they are thinking about savings.
Right, and so that's why I think our webinar is extremely important today, because even the government across the world is hoping for the market to stabilize and people to have the trust back in the market in order to invest rather than hold back. So this is one of the challenges that the BFSI sector is facing. Would you please elaborate on what is the way ahead to address these challenges that the BFSI sector is facing, with a focus on India?
All right. Let me start with customers, right? Because the BFSI segment or the sector is there, the banking sector is there as long as the clients and the customers are there. It's all about their mindset, right? What is that your market? What is that you are putting into their head? What is that? What is it that unique selling proposition you are creating for your particular product or a brand? Now think about it. From class 6th or 7th, I think 7th. Correct me if I'm wrong. That we have been doing mathematics, right, from childhood, and 7th I think is the class when simple interest and compound interest formula starts coming in. Correct?
Right,
And
right.
right, and all of us have gone through it, and we have again gone through it when we are teaching that to our sons and daughters. Uh, so there is a formula which comes into our this thing. As far as simple interest is concerned, people say it is principal, rate and time. It's a very simple formula. So the moment it comes to a compound interest, they say, okay, compound interest is a good thing. So what is the formula of compound interest? They say it is, the amount that you're going to get after a certain period of time is principal multiplied by 1 plus r by 100 to the power of t. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? So I think that's a formula that we have gone through again and again, and we have understood that compound interest is better than simple interest. Now, unfortunately, if you see the mindset, I would start from here only. How the client's mindset works, they focus on R, right? Most of the client and the customer that we are talking to, they're focusing on R, which is quite dynamic in nature. right? Because as the market moves on, the R would differ from product to product, time to time, depending on how the governments are, yeah, they are coming out with their different kind of policies. Nobody focuses on T, right? And T is at the power. R is just getting multiplied with your principal. That too, that too is multiplied with your principal, but nobody focuses on T, which is on the power, right? So unfortunately, because of this gap, which is investors starting more focusing on R, which is not in their hand. And from childhood, we have been, all our influences has been teaching us is that work on things which is in your hand, correct? Something which is not in your concern, don't start, focusing on that. Now, R is not in our, concern area where we can actually influence it. What we can influence directly is the power which is in T, which means stay in, spend time. Do not time the market, spend time in the market, right? Or whichever market we are talking about, whether it is real estate, etc., whatever. Focus on T. The power, when the power goes from 1 to 2, from 5, I think, it creates wonders. Yeah, Brita was wanted to
Yes.
say something.
Since you mentioned the word time, a lot of people are not afraid, but they're wary of the word time because they feel that if you make an investment, you cannot get the money out before 5 years, 10 years, whatever it be. And the fear is in the mind that, in case something happens, how do I get the money out? So how would you address that fear in people?
All right. I think wonderful point that you have identified. It is the concern is the liquidity, right? Which means the biggest issue. Again, I will come back to the client's perspective only. The biggest issue with this kind of mindset is the liquidity issue. Is that the more, so people see that there should be in any instrument wherever I'm putting my money in, there should be a liquidity, which means what? I should be able to access it whenever I want, right? It means that I have put my money today, I want it tomorrow, right? Now that happens in gambling, correct? That happens in what we call it as when you play roulette, when you pay, what is that called as? It's called as roulette, right?
Teen patti.
Teen patti, when you pay teen patti, when you play, or even in or more local language, you say it's when you play matka, it happens like that, right? You put your money now, and in another 2 hours, you're going to get back your money, right? It doesn't happen that way when it is that's why I said the definition is very simple. It's systematic, right? It has to be systematic. So that when the liquidity is the biggest, what I got biggest villain in any of the instrument, the more the liquidity is there, the more danger is on your is on the in the client's perspective, is that they will not be able to meet their objective. After 10 years, I would like to put my child in an engineering college or in a medical college that would cost me 20-25 lakhs. And if I start saving and if I start putting in money in some instrument which has got a huge liquidity, which means I can take out my money anytime, which end of the day, it's a dynamic world. It's a dynamic, my life is not going to be a smooth. There would be a time when I would need money. And the first thing is that I'm going to take out money from where I see that I put my money in. So liquidity is the biggest villain. And that's
Yes.
why I say that wherever we see, look at where time perspective is going to play a major role. Like when we talk about equity market, the time plays a very, very strong role, right? When we talk about real estate market also, the time plays a very, very strong role. Look at gold, right? That how it was faring, 3 years, 4 years back, and what it is standing today, and what is the future. They're saying that stick around with gold, it would go higher and higher. So time is the biggest thing. And as a BFSI professional, I think one of the biggest challenges, now I'll come to the challenge part. The biggest challenge with most of the BFSI companies who are, whether it is in insurance or whether it is in any other equity or commodity or any other thing, I think one of the biggest issue is that they are not focusing, or rather they are not pushing time into the consumer's mind or the customer's mind. That T is going to play a major role. So let's focus on T and build on T, right? R would come and go. It would go up and down depending on how the market is performing. But T is something which you need to stay in. The more you stay, the more you make for your future.
Absolutely. Very well put, Diptendu. I think it's a important reminder for all of us in the audience right now. In fact, RBI has been proactive in ensuring reforms to tackle this systematically, these challenges, which one thing that comes into mind is the 3 months moratorium that has been granted to the people who have taken loans, which means that if they cannot pay the EMI for 3 months, it will not hamper their credit rating, which means the HNI or high net worth individuals who are big lenders will be given this breather, so to say. And here is where I would like to turn my question to the question of wealth management and financial planning. How important it is and how it should be done in order to ensure a better return, keeping in mind, of course, the trust and the time, both incidentally begins with a T here.
Yeah, I think you have pointed out fantastically that RBI is taking all the steps to maintain the liquidity in the market. Look at the repo rates that they have reduced over a period of time. They have got a constant watch in the watch. They're constantly watching the market, that how to push in money, how to push in, how to put how to make the money flow in the market more frequently. But the challenges are different. If there is no takers, no matter how much you want to give, nobody is going to take it, right? So, for example, most of the products are suffering in sales because the consumer confidence, that's what I have been always telling, the consumer confidence has been shaken. And if the consumer confidence shaken, no matter how much money you give it in, give in their pocket, they are not going to go out and spend that money, right? And if there is no spending, there is the economy is going to go for a standstill, and that's what exactly we are moving towards. But essentially, one very important question that you have, even in this gloomy situation or scenario, I think one of the very important point that you have come out is wealth management, right? And I think before we even manage wealth, I think one has to have that mindset, or the clients or the customer has to have the mindset, is to create the wealth. So how do we create, or first and foremost question is that whether we have that mindset of creation of wealth or not. When we say creation of wealth, doesn't mean that I keep on adding my money into same instrument again and again, right? So there are various instruments depending on the risk factors where you need to choose, where you need to put your risk, do a risk profiling for those instruments. Like, for example, let me give you a fantastic equation again, in order to create a looking at a wealth creation. Now look at the interest rates, right? For the last 10 years or 15 years, our interest rates are spiraling downwards, right? All across. You look at last 5 years, it has been more so, and last 1 year it has been furthermore, right? Now essentially people don't look at this as an opportunity. Now, how this is an opportunity? It's a wonderful opportunity for people to put their, or siphon off their money, whatever extra money they have. All again, I'm saying the investment oriented mindset, or even the savings oriented mindset. Why not put into some bonds, right? Or why not put into some debt instruments? Now, why I'm saying so is that when we look at the bonds or a debt instrument, the rates are inversely proportional to the interest rates. So when the interest rates are going down, the bond rates are going up, right? So there are many instruments in the market which are dealing in bonds or debt instrument, whether it is a mutual fund or whether it is any other kind of, or whether it is a unit linked policies. They all deal with bond funds or debt related funds. And if you see the performance of this debt related or bond funds, and these bonds and debts are absolutely secured instrument. They are either put into some government bonds, or treasury bills, or a mix and match of all those GSEC bonds. So if you take this as an advantage, if you take this as an opportunity, and you explore that market, you will find that these instruments are quite secure as compared to other dynamic instruments. And two, it is inversely proportional to the interest rates which are running in the market. Now, interest rates are falling, correct? And we are seeing that if the repo rates are running at 3.5 to 4%, obviously the lending rates are also lesser. So as the interest rates are going down, the bond rates are going to go up, and people can start thinking about, putting their money into these kind of instruments where they can feel a little secured, and as well as they can create wealth, because these instruments, bond instruments, if you look at it, on an average across, if you just visit your money control, find that all the bonds oriented instruments are giving a return more than 10%, right? Essentially, if you look at the 5-year performance, they would be around 8.5, 9%, which is decent. And in the last 1 to 2 years, they have, because of the interest rate spiraling downwards, their returns have gone drastically up. Because of the nature of inverse relationship, their returns have gone up to 10 to 12%, which essentially is beating the inflation. It is also secured, and it's a midway between thinking of between savings and investment, right? So it's a midway kind of path in these difficult times when you are when people are thinking they're disturbed, or let me put it, very dynamic, different time, challenging time. They are worried about their money. I think why not explore these at this as an opportunity, because interest rates for the next couple of years is on a spiraling downwards. One can refer internet or RBI's projection. Everything is going downwards. So when you say wealth management, I think the first question is to look at the wealth creation part. How do we create wealth in these difficult times? And this is how we should look at creation of wealth. That these are certain instruments, these are certain areas where they can actually look at. And therefore, now the second concept comes in, as you had rightly said, the time comes into the picture. If you are there where you have put your money for a considerable amount of time, you will find that your wealth has gone up slowly and steadily. Now think about a time when 10 years back people had put this money even in the bond sector. If they had put their money in the bond sector, today they must be enjoying, right? Today in these difficult times they must be saying that fantastic, let other people worry. I have my money, I have made my money in the last 10 years. You can run around from pillars to post to make your money, but I am okay. Another 2 months of lockdown doesn't make any difference to us, right? So I think that's the area where creation of wealth, most of the education part or information part should go into make creation of wealth. How do you do it? And then comes the question, wealth management is that once you have created that kind of wealth, how do you manage it, right? For example, people who are into the equity market right now, and they have made a considerable amount of money from 2009. Think about the time in 2009, the market was running at around 8 to 9,000 points. And today it's all, even after going to 41,000, it has come down to 30, 31,000, 32,000. So look at the kind of money these people have made, right? So now what? Right, because of the dynamic nature, now the wealth management picture comes into the picture, is how I put this wealth into different baskets. What are those baskets which are available? Like one of the basket I just shared with you. What are the other baskets that are available? And let's go ahead with this basket and manage our wealth. Doesn't matter if we don't get too much of an output out of it. Great, because these times are not going to stay forever. Maybe a year, 2 or 3 max, and then again I can come back into this a volatile market again and play my game in this volatile market.
Absolutely, very, very
There
well.
is a question from JP Rat. May I read it out to you?
Yeah,
It
sure.
says government needs saving in SS.
Yes.
I don't know what that is. This increases their ability to borrow. This is required today rather than investment options in mutual funds where the money is not accessible to the government unless the government wants to disinvest. Please comment.
All right, I think one thing we have completely gone wrong. Mutual fund doesn't mean it's always the equity part. I just shared the bond sector, right? The bond sector is completely like government GSEC bonds. There is treasury bills. There is infrastructure bonds. So all these are bond in the bond sector. It's completely 100%. Most of them are from the government oriented, other than corporate bonds as well. So it's not like that government does not have an access to this market. But essentially, yes, I would agree to the one point is that savings are important. Small savings are important because that's where the money is there, and that's where it's an easy access for the government. Now, easy access means less money. Correct. In a very simple terms, let me put it this way: easy. If the government has got an easy access to the money for infrastructure development, etc., which means the returns are going to be less. So if there are people, as I said, savings-oriented mindset people, if they are okay with it, great. But it's not true that mutual funds is not available with the government. As I said, there is a considerable amount of sector where there are bond funds, and if you can look at the bifurcation of the bond funds, you will find that 80-85% of all the bond funds are or balanced funds in mutual fund industry as well is in government sector, right? And that's what the debt sector is mainly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diptendu. When you were talking about the high net worth individuals who have made so much money by managing risk that they can say that they can sustain economic unstable situation, it just reminds me of a story that I read in the newspaper about this HNI who had flown his family, his wife and two children, in a privately hired aircraft with crew only from Bhopal to Delhi. He had chartered the flight. It costs him, it costed around 10 lakhs. Of course, it helped because the fuel cost of aircraft is right now pretty low because of low demand. So we even have HNI like that in India. It's not that there isn't money. There, of course, is money in, and it requires the right mindset to put it where it should be showing growth.
I would say, why go to that extent? Look at the kind of huge lines in front of all the liquor shops in Delhi. 70% more than the price they're ready to pay, and they're fighting on it, which means they have money. It's only
Exactly.
whether we are ready to tap that market or not.
Exactly. So if we know risk, then the money would be eventually, the liquidity crisis that we have right now eventually would be sorted. As you said, probably we need to sustain for the next 2 to 3 years, but then I'm sure after that it will be stable. Coming to the BFSI sector once again, and according to National Skill Development Corporation estimate, by 2022, the banking sector only would contribute to over 1.6 million of job generation. So there's a huge scope, although I believe that this pandemic would kind of alter that a little bit, but I don't think it will be there's a huge gap. So there is still a huge scope of employment in the BFSI sector. So if you just elaborate on that, what are the scopes of employment in BFSI sector?
I think you have pointed out very validly the statistics that you have been talking about. That the majority of the jobs today is going to come was coming from BFSI sector only, because essentially we are our 60 to 65% of our GDP is been contributed by service sector itself. So and of which BFSI is a major contributor. So obviously, one thing is for sure, this segment is going to stay. This is where the jobs are going to be even in the near future. Maybe this 6 months time period would be a little challenging, but nevertheless, I think this is the time period. Probably this is the period where they would be using their existing sales force or existing people, resources to address the market. But and eventually, look at the population of India, right? With the banking sector being consolidated, as we saw in the past 6 months, there been a huge consolidation in the banking sector. There are 4 big banks which have been formed out of so many banks. So where are the people going to go, right? They have to be either of these 4 banks, right? Somewhere they have to deal with these 4 banks. They have now, the people have got only one option, that either I take less return in the form of savings, or I try to beat inflation in the near future. So where would I go? I will have to go to the banks. I will have to go to the people who are dealing in the financial sector. Correct, because money is a very important aspect. And if you look at during this last 2-3 challenging months time period, I think everybody clapped for the doctor warriors, and they are frontline warriors, etc. But nobody clapped for the banking people. Now imagine at this point of time, you didn't have money in your pocket, or you couldn't access your money. There was no ATM, or there was no online transfer kind of system. Can you imagine what kind of scenario we would have faced? So I think one of the biggest financial warriors in this industry is the banking sector, who has contributed in a huge manner by introduction of technology. We don't need actual cash in our pocket anymore. I think that's looking at that aspect. by how they are servicing the client, right? That's what is the most important point. So today for the clients, there is going to be one point of interaction, which is either of these banks or the financial industries, and therefore look at the population. We are talking. Look at the B grade towns. Look at the C grade towns, where there is the population is going up drastically. The cash in hand is going up drastically. So where would they go? Right. So this BFSI sector is the only sector where, where the jobs are going to come from in the near future, like other than as compared to other sectors. Number two is that, yes, BFSI sector is going to contribute, but at the same time, this one has to understand that how I need to get into this BFSI sector, right? So when I talk to people, when I talk to client, there is a lot of data that I have to, I have to utilize in my mind. I have to use it to convince people that this is what exactly it looks like. So analytical mindset would play a very, very strong role. Data analytical mindset would play a very strong role. And at the same time, when I meet people, I think the first thing that we sell is our trust. Correct. So today, all the banks doing such a huge amount of branding, all the financial institutions doing huge amount of branding, is only because they want to create that kind of trust in the consumer's mind. So hiring Amitabh Bachchan or hiring a XYZ brand ambassador for a certain amount of certain kind of certain time period is only going to increase the trust in the consumer's mind. Now, that trust has to be encashed by the people who are going to be employed in this BFSI segment, and they need to learn how to communicate with these clients, how to talk to them. And essentially, one of the another key components comes into the picture is how do they communicate, or what are their communication skills? How do they upgrade the communication skills as the time goes by? Now, for example, let me put it in a very simple way. Is Apple a strong brand or not? Avirupa, is Apple strong brand or not?
Huge,
Right?
hugely strong.
It's a
Decidedly.
very, very strong brand. But would you buy a 1 GB RAM Apple brand if I give you for 2,000, 3,000 rupees? I'm talking about only 1 GB RAM, and it's an Apple brand. Would people buy that? They will not buy. So even if you have that Apple brand and say that we are Apple and Apple, 1 GB doesn't make any sense when the market is running at what, 8 GB, and the market is running at 8 GB or 10 GB, right? So what I'm trying to say is that your selling skills or your communication skills, rather, let me put it this way, should get upgraded time to time, right? So the way you used to sell Apple, look at the advertisement that Apple used to do, 7 or 8 years back. They used to say only Apple. Today they say we have 3 cameras, we have, we have all these facilities, we have, they don't say Apple anymore. They say we have this, we have that. So they have also changed their communication style. So what I'm essentially trying to say is that, one, data analytical mindset, very important. And two, the communication style or the communication skill has to be upgraded constantly in order to meet these challenges in the BFSI sector as well.
Thank you, Diptendu. I think the two key things that came out from this is not only you talked about what are the scope in this industry, in this sector, future, but also you talked about the future skills required to make it, to make the new managers more effective. And the two key areas were, number one, the analytical skills, where I can quote McKinsey. It predicted by 2022, over 30% of the BFSI jobs right now will be automated. But at the same time, it also means that there will be certain other kinds of job which will be generated because of this automation. And
Yes.
the other point, so people need to be more analytical in their ability to analyze financial analytics in order to be more functional, to be able to multitask. And the other part, which you very importantly said, is about communication, where I think in the way forward, if you talk about trust building, then it doesn't depend, as you said, on the brand. It depends on actually the person who is representing the bank or the institution. So grievance handling, new customer acquisition, and more importantly, customer retention.
Yes.
And the crucial most part is customer relationship management. Here is where I think a lot of communication skills and trust building will come
Absolutely.
in. And here I would like to direct the question to Brita, who has a long experience in communication training. Brita, would you like to add on to this? What are going to be the key skill areas for communication training.
Okay, I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
Can you hear
of
me?
course.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you,
Loud
Brita.
and clear. Okay, great. Okay, as you've mentioned and as Diptendu's mentioned, it is trust which is most important. Now, when a relationship manager is interacting with a customer, he is not looking for a one-time engagement. The transaction should be such that the relationship is carried on over a number of years, over a number of transactions, so that so that the relationship manager is able to nurture and look after the client's interests. So over here, it's not basic communication skills, it's fluency and eloquency. You have to also be able to stand and understand the customer's viewpoint, see where the customer's coming from, and address that customer's particular needs and fears, rather than trying to push a particular product. It's only when the customer understands that you understand them will the whole business of trust come out. And that comes with empathy, fluency, and with eloquence. One of the very important thing is that when you're speaking, you have to have complete knowledge of whatever you're talking about. Because you don't really know what questions a customer might throw to you. Depending on their fears, their perceptions, they might have particular questions, which might be perfectly normal to the customer. So they have to be able to answer these questions in such a way that they're able to make their customers understand and are able to reduce their anxieties, fears, and apprehensions. And that is the only way. So communication is actually the foundation on which a relationship is built. And if communication is weak, you cannot have a relationship.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Very rightly said. So, A, every person should focus on content, and B is, I think, one of the key things that is empathy. So a bridge between the two would actually ensure that the trust the customer is looking for in the brand comes through to you. By you, I mean the future managers, of course, who are looking at the FSI sector to make it their employment center. And the other part that Diptendu talked about was analytical skill. And here we have with us Dr. Rajib Bhattacharya, who has been researching on financial analytics. I would really like to ask Mr. Bhattacharya about how to train young managers, because if we look at MBA or management education, it is a very inclusive subject, which means that it brings in students from all sectors. And here they're given a finishing school of training, which would make them future ready. Here, analytics is a big part which talks about numbers. And maybe all students who have opted for management education may not be that confident in numbers. So how would you say, Mr. Bhattacharya, Dr. Bhattacharya, are numbers important, and how to train these future financial analytics?
Thank you, Avirupa. This question was is very, very pertinent, because training up today's or tomorrow's managers to take up a greater responsibility is of utmost importance. And regarding data analytics, in my experience, what I have to say is this, that the first challenge, the first thing which business schools need to address is to create a mentality, an attitude among its students about data analytics. The thing is that as managers, they are expected to take decisions, effective and efficient decisions. And decisions are based on information. The more accurate, the more timely, the more relevant the information is, the decision is going to be a bit more efficient and effective. Now the thing is that how to get this information? Information doesn't come like that. What we have in plenty around us is data. So the transition from data to information is all what data analytics is all about. Data is nothing but, as we say, raw data, just simple facts. It might be structured, it might come in numbers, or it might come in any form. Say, for example, it may come as somebody's conversation, a picture, a video. These are all data. So the first thing is that we have to create a mentality, the attitude among students. And two reports I'd like to lay stress on 2000, last year only in 2019, McKinsey came up with a report and Deloitte also came up with a report where McKinsey clearly stated that managers who are more data literate, a majority of them, not only they have met their business goals, but they have surpassed their business goals. It's an empirical proof that what data means in today's business. And in Deloitte's report in the same year, 2019, they said they invented, or rather they stressed upon a new concept which is called data culture. We talk about organizational culture. They say that as it has been proved in empirical studies across the world, that the more data culture is incorporated into the corporate culture, the more successful is that organization. So now the managers or students who are going to be tomorrow's managers must understand, and it is our duty to make them understand, feel, realize that data literacy is not a desirable skill set. It is now an essential skill set. This is the first challenge. Then comes this concept of data analytics. Now, in my experience, what I have seen, the students have this, they lay much more stress on this word analytics. And then they get scared about analytics because they think analytics is all about very, very scary looking mathematical and statistical formulas and softwares and programs and all those things. But before going into analytics, the question is, what would you analyze? You should analyze data. So do you understand data? So the first thing is that to sensitize them about what is data, in what form data is around you, how to select the data you need to solve your problem, and then what should you do about the data. So for example, we are into BFSI sector. In BFSI, as because it is mostly about finance and all, students have a notion that in BFSI, whenever it comes to data, it has got to be numbers. But it's not like that. For example, suppose in every bank, when we go, the bank tries to inform us about the various mutual funds they are dealing in. So when they say that, why don't you invest here, why don't you invest there? Maybe majority of the clients do not invest. But what do they have to say? When they are offered a product or when they are shown a product, what they say? This, what they say, the words they pronounce, the conversation they have, maybe a very short conversation, maybe a medium to long conversation. This conversation is a potential source of data to know what people think about your product. And then your marketing mechanism might change on that. So that is a potential source of data. It is not in numbers, it is not in columns and rows, but it is a very, very vital data. I'll tell you of a particular example. A branch of a public sector unit, a PSU bank, they were, when that Janadhan Yojana project, this scheme came in, they were having a problem that when the scheme came in, they had huge number of accounts opened. But after a couple of years, it was seen that the credit submission, the transactions in those accounts were almost nil. So they were having a problem. Why did it happen? So we were there, and what we did, what we researched out, what the data we collected from the account holders were not in numbers, but they were all unstructured data, qualitative data as we call it. And then the problem was identified, and then the bank solved the problem. So the first thing students must understand, that data is abundant. We are now drowned in data. What data I need to solve my business problem? So before that, they must be aware what is the problem. And then on the basis of that, they must identify which data is relevant and where to find it. This is the first thing. Once they are through with this thing, then we come to data analytics. Now, one confusion students often have, that what is the difference between data analysis and data analytics? So what's the difference between that? That's a very subtle difference. It's a subset superset concept. When we say data analysis, it is nothing but a subset of data analytics. In analysis, what we do, we have a conglomerate of data and we classify it into certain sectors and we present it for better understanding. Say, suppose I take data from 500 respondents, and then I say this much is male, this much is male candidates, this much is female respondents. And according to educational characteristics, these are the classifications. If I do n number of these sort of things, we are basically into data analysis, and we present this in form of various pictures, which we now today call data visualization. Data analysis is up to this. But then comes the bigger set, that is the data analytics. I have to take a decision on what information, what hidden information can I extract from this data in order to enable me to reach a business conclusion or to solve a business problem, to come to an inference, a conclusion regarding this data which I've collected. So I try to find out a trend. I try to find out a causal relationship. I try to find out an association between various variables and attributes. I want to find out what causes what. So the moment I'm into this logical analysis, I am going into data analytics. So data analytics is a subset and data analysis is a subset. So now comes the next step, how to train students about it. In my opinion, we must also sensitize the students about this, that each and every student is not going to be a data analyst, but each and every one of them is going to solve business problems, maybe at junior levels, at senior levels, mid-senior levels, or at senior levels. Maybe. So data analysis is required, data analytics is required in all the levels. Yes, if the job requirement is such, then they might be required to do analysis at a higher level. But that doesn't mean that each and every student has got to be an expert in econometric methods and they all will have become data analysts. Not like that. I'll give you a simple example. They have to, or we have to sensitize them that data analytics is nothing but a microscope. A very, very powerful microscope which lets you have a deeper insight into your data so that you can have a clear, say, understanding about the data. You know where exactly the problem lies. And if we do this, I'll give you two examples. In one of the companies I worked with, there was a problem and everybody, including the CEO, thought it was a finance department problem. But when the problem was analyzed, it was seen it was a motivational problem, nothing to do with finance. Similarly, in another company, there was a problem and everybody thought that was due to a marketing problem. And later on, it was seen it was a design and structural problem. So unless you go deeper into the thing with a very, very powerful microscope, how do you know where exactly your problem lies? And this microscope is nothing but data analytics in your hand. And this is required at every level. Even the junior level management needs to take a decision. On what basis do they take a decision? I'll give you a very simple example. Suppose you're a sectional head. You have got 5 assistants under you. All of them can perform all the same jobs. And you have 5 jobs. Which job to be assigned to which one so that you can get the organizational objective achieved at the minimum layout of the resources? Is this not a problem? And this can be solved in a very simple way. So first thing, to let them know that it is required at all levels. It is not a rocket science. And all the calculation, if you need to do, is just plain simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And do not get scared about these terminologies. Suppose something say data prioritization. There is nothing to be scared about. If suppose you want to buy a cell phone, you simply search, you go to Amazon site, you go to Flipkart, and you have your specifications. I need this much screen size, this much RAM, this camera, this MP size, and this is my budget. So now you are searching out for operations. So what you are doing? First of all, you are doing optimization. You are trying to maximize your utility subject to a constant of the limited budget you have. That is nothing but optimization. And when you are getting a number of information, you are going to Amazon, there are so many data available. Are you focusing on each and every one of them? You are focusing on only those data which you are interested in. What you are doing, you're basically doing data filtration. And when you ultimately zero in on 10 to 7 models, or say 5 to 6 models, or even 3 to 4 models, and then you select one, you are doing nothing but data prioritization. So these terminologies are not rocket science. These were, but only it comes in a new form. You only need to know that what they actually are and in what situation you need to apply them. That's all. It's not that very tough thing.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Bhattacharya. Thank you,
So
Dr. Bhattacharya.
this
Can I
is
ask
all
a
what I have to say.
question?
Yeah, please, ma'am.
Yeah. Now these are both questions. I really don't know who it's for, whether it's for Diptendu or Rajib. So I'll throw it to the panel. They are connected, so I'll say them both one after the other. The first one says, it is said, never waste a good crisis. The current situation has pushed us further into digital transactions. So in a way, financial transparency is gaining ground. Your opinion on that? And the other one related to this, what are your thoughts about digitization, such as AI or video banking system, etc.? Is this going to be important post the COVID world?
All right. Let me put it this way. When people start talking about AI, artificial intelligence, it's nothing new, right? We have been operating lift from ages, right? And lift is nothing else but an AI, correct? So it's nothing new for us. But yes, the rate of transformation or the rate of acceptance of AI or into our way of life has gone up drastically, and it is going to be a way of life in the coming time only. So essentially, when we talk about digitization, it's all AI which is functioning in making the digitization work. And particularly in BFSI segment, if you see today, I'm it has been already done in most of the segment. But when we look at in particularly BFSI segment today, we do not have physical accounts, right? We have in equity market, or if we have a demat, so dematerialized, they say it as a demat account, right? So it's digitized account. When we are maintaining today savings account, how many of us actually go to the bank and withdraw money, etc., right? So forget withdrawing money, we don't even carry cash anymore. So the future is digitization. And as I gave you an example of whether you would like to buy an Apple brand of 1 GB or whether you like to buy an Apple brand of 8 GB, what is more important is that how quickly you can adopt your communication style and use the digitization or AI for your benefit, right? So so today we have got such a huge social networking sites. How do we use, challenge is that how do we use this to reach to common people and talk about our BFSI industry, or talk about or use special skills, special communication skills in order to convince them, because the attention span in the digital platform is not more than let me put it 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes to the max of client, right? So if you can't grab their attention within 5 minutes, right? And that too within first 10 seconds, if you are unable to grab their attention, you will not be able to take it forward. So these are few challenging things that one should start looking at, because digitization is going to be the way of life. And in fact, we are seeing all the schools are adopting it, all the colleges are adopting it, companies are adopting it, and even this post COVID times, they are saying that they have tasted success in this. They have seen this as an opportunity to cut the cost, and they are saying is that even after this situation becomes normal, we would love people to work from home. Right. So even Google is saying that, even Microsoft is saying that. They're saying that we have identified that yes, people can work from home, and hence increase the productivity or increase the profits or increase the revenues of the organization.
But I believe there are also CEOs who are saying that working from home, yes, is a solution. We cannot be the only solution. We will still need people around. A very interesting point that you said there is that the social media attention span. In the first 10 seconds, if you do not grab the attention, it means that you have lost your audience. I believe we have been successful in that, doing that, because we still have our audience with us in the Facebook who are asking questions. In fact, a lot, I would say lots of thanks to them and to the ISB&M fraternity who has been supporting us, and to the student community out there who, in fact, I would like to take a cue from Mr. Rajib Bhattacharya. What he has been saying is that data analytics is not really that big a deal. I mean, he's one of the experts who trains at ISB&M Kolkata about data analytics. And when I say to the students that when you look for the best B school, what you do essentially is data analysis. And people who zero in on ISB&M Kolkata, well, I would say brilliant. And with that, I think we have come a long way. We have, in this webinar, we have covered a lot of scopes and opportunities, and we believe to take this series forward with more and more subject matter experts. And we promise our audience that with this participation, we are encouraged to have more seminars like that on the theme of adapt, evolve, and succeed. I thank all the panelists here. I now request Brita to please take over.
Thank you so much, Avirupa. First, let me thank all the people who have been watching this webinar on Facebook. Thank you for your participation and, most importantly, your questions. Thank you so much, Rajib, for helping students understand that data analytics and data is not the bugbear that they think it's going to be, and that is actually something purely logical which needs just understanding. You have simplified it for them, and I'm sure this is going to be very, very heartening for a lot of students who are terrified of numbers. Diptendu, your thoughts, your ideas, your views, your opinions, we could actually have had a session with you. I think we've already done that without realizing we've done that, on that we should look at the future with optimism and that we have nothing to fear. We've got it from the mouth of the man who knows what he's talking about, who's been in this sector for years and is looking towards the future with optimism. Thank you so much, because I think it's so important to be optimistic in these rather trying and scaring times, because there are so many challenges before us, very interesting ones, and you can face them if you're optimistic, if you have courage, and if you have the guts to say, I will do it. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.